Hey everybody, welcome to Max spoilers for Horizon Forbidden West, which is not Horizon 2, I guess. There's like a secret Roman numeral in there in the logo. But I'm Kyle Hilliard. Janet Garcia is here, of course. Hello, Janet.
Yo, what's up?
And then we have special guest Steve Bowling from Good Vibes Gaming. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Rumor has it you were tweeting about Horizon and you were like, I want to talk to people about this, which is how you got our attention. So hopefully that's true. That wasn't a lie that you were tweeting.
Oh, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, as we'll discuss, the story goes places like with a capital P. And I was just the plight of a reviewer is that you don't have really a whole lot of people that you could talk to about this stuff. Like when the story of a game is good and you've beat it before it's even out, like it's so hard to find anyone else who has had that experience that you can kind of just gush about the game with. And you obviously don't want to just go on Twitter and start talking about it. So I was definitely intentionally trying to get someone's attention. I was like, if y'all are talking Horizon, please have me on. I have lots of things to say.
Perfect. Yeah. And now before we get too deep into it, of course, I want to remind everyone that we're a Patreon. And if you support us on Patreon at any tier, you can unlock the podcast version of this discussion, which means, maybe you're watching us live on Twitch as we're doing it right now. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. But if you would prefer to, not see our faces and listen to it, we have a special podcast feed of all our shows that you can get access to if you support us on Patreon. So I want to make sure I get that plug in there. So I'm going to lean on you guys. I have played and beaten this game and I enjoyed it. But in terms of like the character names and the tribal names and like those kind of things, I kind of struggle with those things. So I'm hoping that you guys can help me out with that. But where do we start, I guess? Janet, you want to kick us off? Maybe we'll just kind of start from the beginning of the game and kind of make our way through.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can just kick it off with, I guess the first, you can barely count this as a reveal, because, and don't mind me as I filibuster as Isaiah frantically tries to leave the room before I spoil this game. He saw this part.
He hasn't finished it, I take it.
No,
right?
He's not finished it. But I think the first real reveal, and granted, like you've seen some of this in the marketing, was seeing Varl at the beginning of the game. Varl was in the first one. He was part of, like, when the sister that died, like it was a part of like the proving drama and all that. So seeing Varl, it was kind of, I think the first time we were introduced to, this is very much still Aloy's story, and even when there's companion characters, they don't really have like a crazy active mechanical role, but this is Aloy in a context that we haven't really seen before, in the sense that she has a team. There's like a little Aloy's army kind of vibe going through it. So I was very excited to see Varl, and I was very sad that all of my stuff is gone. Whereas I'm like, and there's like a throwaway line where she's like, oh yeah, like I lost like a bunch of my stuff. And he's like, okay, well here, I'm just going to hand you these things you've had before. And like, that was kind of a salty moment a little bit. And I think it kind of colored some elements of the sequel, where some things she still knows how to do, but then some things she sort of forgot. And like, you kind of just go with it.
She's a busy woman, Janet. She doesn't have time to remember all that stuff.
But what was your guys' feel with that opening area? It's kind of a larger tutorial type set piece. I personally thought it was really cute too that they hid the tutorial in Aloy teaching Varl like how to use the focus. Like I thought that was a nice little device. Really smart. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool mechanically how she almost took on the role of Rost, like teaching someone else how to do things, and I agree. The focus, it would be weird for Aloy to have to go through and relearn how to use something that's such a key component of the original game. I thought it was cool that they kind of worked that into where Varl is now kind of her apprentice in a way. And I really liked that. I honestly was kind of hoping that we'd get some moments during the tutorial where we could take control of Varl for a little bit and have Aloy kind of, telling him what to do, showing him the ropes. But I still think Guerrilla handled it really well.
Yeah, I think it's smart. What's the thing that they wear on the side of their head? What's it called again? A focus, right?
Focus.
Yep.
It's funny that how she kind of like starts handing those out to everybody, like that's,
yeah.
Hey, you're Aloy's army.
Side.
Here's your badge, and I did enjoy, I mean, even to maybe jump ahead just a little bit, like as you kind of give those to different characters, it's fun to watch them learn how to do it and kind of get a sense of like, oh, this is how Aloy's been seeing everything all along. It's also weird how many she has. She just has like a potato.
Yeah, she just has like a pouch full of them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But I mean, the big thing is like you have to restart Gaia, right? Like that she's trying to find a backup of Gaia. and that's kind of like that's your early goal. And I will say actually that early, I don't know, hour, 2 hours, I wasn't like, I didn't dislike it or anything. I wasn't unhappy. I was like, this so far so good, but it like nothing really grabbed me. It almost felt like that sort of lame thing where it's like, oh, stuff that I accomplished in the first game is a little undone a little bit. Now I just kind of got to redo it. It gets over that at a certain point, but that's kind of how I felt initially. I don't know if you guys felt similarly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a slow start. One thing that struck me is I'm playing this along, playing a bunch of other stuff going on. So like when I first got the code, I think I also had gotten my code for Dying Light 2. So I'm like, okay, well that one's due first. But I'm like, I want to start at least Horizon a little bit. And I played a little bit. And then when I came back to it and played a bigger chunk, and then I hit the opening credits, I'm like, oh, I really hadn't started this game. So I think it's definitely a slow start.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing that I've learned from reviewing specifically like Sony first party games for a few years now, is that there's you don't know, like the intro isn't done until you see the logo pop up on screen. Like you get through and I kept thinking like, is it just not going to do it? Like, are we not going to have like the Sony first party moment where and then finally I was like, oh, this is where the game starts. I was like, I've played a lot to get here, and that like way more than I expected to. So yeah, I agree that the pacing of the opening probably could be a little bit tighter, because you start to get tricked into thinking like, oh, they're just not going to do the thing that they always do. Like you're just going to go into the, you never get that. And when it finally happens, you're like, that was a couple hours that I was playing, waiting for that to happen. But yeah, it's I think that it's a little bit plotting at times, but once you get into the game, the payoff is huge. I think that, like its predecessor, when the world opens up, you really find out like there's just so much to do, and that map is absurdly large. Yeah,
I mean, things really start kicking off. And again, please correct my names of the tribes and stuff like that. But it's when you go west and you see the sort of the civil war that's happening. It's like the Takanth and the Karja, right, are fighting each other. Is that right?
The Tanakh. Yeah.
Excuse me. And like the game really sort of kicked off for me. Janny, you'll appreciate this. I feel like is when you have that fight where the civil war kind of breaks out, and you get the paraglider shield thing. I feel that's like that to me. That was like the title screen to me. I was like, okay, I have this thing now. Now I can start playing Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah, I guess it really is like two beginnings, because like I do think that's when I think like an hour or two after that, like if you're not feeling it, like, I mean, there's a lot more mechanically that's going to like unravel, but I feel like that gives you like the complete opening, because again, there's like a tutorial opening that has a mandatory stealth section that never returns.
Right.
So that was a weird moment. And then there's like the sort of, which I think is kind of smart, honestly, because it really like avoids you being overwhelmed by the open world, because it's like, okay, we're going to give you like a really quick in-depth dose of if you want to dig into all the stuff going on with like the Oseram tribe and like the stoppage of work and like the inner politics there, you can dig into that. But otherwise you can go and carry forth with the story. Before we get too far away from it though, I do want to shout out the tutorial section. That snake, awesome. Love the snake, big mechanical snake. I think it also was like, that's the first big action set piece you have, either like before or after like getting the oh my god, what's it called? It's not a hook shot, it's different.
The polecaster.
The polecaster, yeah. So aptly named.
Steve, you're saving us.
Yeah, after learning how to use that, which admittedly I kind of struggled with at first, just like the way that the area they have you climb is laid out. Like I found it kind of difficult to get in the flow of using the polecaster. It's not something I felt later in the game, but getting to remember, okay, let me not shoot my arrow, let me learn how to equip this. But yeah, that snake battle was incredible. I was like thrilled by it. Admittedly, I did die the first time around, but then just I felt like it was such a good moment of being wowed by a machine for the first time in this game. And again, they so easily could have just used so many of the older awesome designs, and you do see some repeating characters, but like I don't know. I love that. I love a good little tease. If you see it before you have to fight it, I really enjoyed that battle.
Right. And I guess now's as good a time as any to, I guess it's kind of jumping forward a little bit, because you do kind of deal with the tribes and the politics and everything. But it's when you get close to that first Gaia backup and the was it the far zenith, right? Is that what they're called?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, you want to walk me through that? Like, because that to me, that is when the game kicks off. Like up to that point, I was like, I'm enjoying this. But when that moment happens, when the Far Zenith show up and the woman who's with them, that's when I was like, okay, I'm in. Now I have to see this to credits. Like that was it.
I agree 100%. So you're traveling to get Gaia, who, if you don't know, is like, she's essentially like the regulatory system for planet Earth. In IT terms, she's almost like a disaster recovery system for the planet, right? And you find out, you peel back layers of that as the story goes on. But when you first go to get that backup, and Aloy is kind of freaked out about whether or not she can find this, because she mentions throughout the story that she's been trying multiple different places to find a backup. And this is like the best lead she's got, and it pans out. But as soon as she gets the backup in her hands, and the crazy thing is she discovers there's not one Gaia backup, but two. And she secures one, and she's going to take the other one. And then these folks descend that are just, they look like something out of like a 1950s sci-fi movie. Like they're wearing like silver shiny outfits. They float in the sky. They can fly. They can make weapons out of thin air. And one of them comes down to challenge Aloy, and she is helpless. She can't do anything against it. They've got just a shield that they can effortlessly bounce her spear, her arrows, everything she has in her arsenal just doesn't work. And it looks like she's in an impossible scenario. She's not going to win, and she only happens, she smartly decides to just drop a part of the environment on this guy just to buy her time to escape. And there's this kind of like really tense escape sequence where these guys, it's not just them, they're super futuristic. They're basically what you would expect from if civilization didn't just erupt and disappear, but they've also got super advanced machines with them, unlike anything you've seen so far. I think they're called specters, and they can like morph and change and do weird stuff, and there's tons of them, and you just have to like escape. It's like the first time in the game that the goal is just run away. Don't fight, get out. And after seeing that, I was like, well, how are we going to, you're going to have to take them out at some point, but what are you going to do? Because everything so far from both Forbidden West and up to this point teaches you that you just don't have the tools to take care of these guys. And there's no, like, even if you followed the lore really closely, there's nothing you can think of that you'd go, oh yeah, that would, I have to do this. Like, there's no way forward.
I feel like, unless I'm misremembering, I feel like you're burying the lead a little bit in that beta's with them, right? Isn't this where she's introduced?
Right.
Yep.
Sorry. I got the embargo so burned into me, and they were like, don't talk about beta. You can't talk. Right. But we're here now. It's a spoiler cast. Yeah. Yes. There is another clone of Elizabeth there. Like Aloy encounters Beta, who looks just like her. And it's just,
it was one of those moments. It was one of those moments for me where, because like going into Forbidden West, I was like, I don't really know where this story goes. I really liked the story in the first one, but I felt like it concluded really nicely. And I was even like leading up to release, I was like, I'm worried that it won't be as interesting as the first Horizon. And it was Beta, truly Beta, like being there and realizing, like, you figure it out pretty quickly that it's like that she's a clone, right, of Elizabeth, like she's another Aloy, and it's just interesting because it's like, of course, like Aloy herself is basically a clone. Like, of course they could make another one of her and access all the things that she needs to access. Like, it was a huge impact for me in terms of like getting me interested and wanting to be engaged and like learning more about who that character was. Are there more of her around? Which it seems like there aren't, but like that was my initial reaction. I was like, they must just have an army of Aloys somewhere, just like just backups of her. But that wasn't the case, unless maybe that's the case in the third one. I don't know.
You're just Aloys all the way down. But yeah, that definitely was the like. I think I agree with you, Kyle. Like, even though I was warmer on it in that lead up, that's when like things started to get really crazy. Where I'm like, the drama on this is now at 11, and I'm here for it. It is a little, it's silly in the sci-fi sense, but I would argue the first game is also kind of ridiculous in its plotline because it's like so science fiction. So I thought it worked really well for the game. I am so curious as to like, as more people, comment on the spoiler cast and beat the game and form thoughts on it, how people are going to react to it. Cause it was just so many ridiculous things happening all at once. It was really overwhelming. So I was really excited to see that happen because it was just like the wildest, craziest thing. This is when I allude to this game being like, did Kojima consult on the writing of this game? Clone Aloy, who's already a clone, like double clone, like yes. And then
Kojima is thanked in the credits. Kojima like productions are in there. There's like 8 people from Kojima Productions.
Oh my god!
Thanks in the credits. Yeah.
Now
maybe he slipped them a little note that was like, I got an idea for you guys.
It's like, what if there were, how everyone likes Aloy? What if we just made another one? Just keep it going.
That's what Metal Gear is. It's everyone liked Big Boss, so let's make a bunch
also,
more of those.
A big moment that happened, and I feel like there was, I think there might have been some, because you're kind of like in a cauldron type area. Like, I think the game did a really good job of doing a lot of like heavy combat stuff, like really exciting, invigorating combat, and then they're like, boom, plot point, big twist. Oh, now you're going through this. Like, I think it weaves together like the cutscenes, the cinematography, the action, the drama, the questions, and they kind of just throw you into this like ridiculous milkshake of things, and then you like get out of it on the other end, and you're like, holy cow, what just happened? A big additional punch they did at the end of that sequence, once you finally escape, is you're like laying on like the outside. You're sort of, you didn't drown, but you went through it, like, and when you come to, you see, is it Rost or Rust? The
sure.
dad,
Rost.
her dad. Rost, right?
Like
you see Rost.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know he's not alive. I saw him explode. Like and then a second later, you see it's Varl, like she's kind of in a dreamlike state. But I thought that was such like a fun little subversion too, because I think that was so well set up because so much ridiculous stuff had just happened. I'm like, yeah, why not Ghost Dad? Sure, let's go. Like, what else could happen here? So I liked that they threw that in there as kind of an emotional little like stab, and they're like, oh, just kidding. Like, we're just messing with you. Like, this, it's not that crazy.
Yeah. And then, yeah, from there, I mean, that it sounds like for all of us, that was like the point of no return, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, this is interesting. This is an interesting hook for the sequel that I wasn't prepared for. Is like, there's clearly some futuristic people here, and they have a clone of me. Like, that's interesting. And then I'm trying to think, like, what happened? What's the next big sort of swing after that? Is it that Silence has figured out a way to actually bypass their armor? Is that like, that's the next big moment I'm thinking of, but maybe I'm skipping over something or I'm forgetting something.
When did
Oh, go ahead.
I'm like, I don't know, spoiler safe, it still feels like there should be an order, but like, I know Varl's death is one of the biggest things that like sticks out to me, but I don't think that's necessarily.
We could totally jump around to the big moments, because that's honestly how I remember it. Like, we don't have to go beat by beat. Like I said, I mean, my brain is getting like flooded with Elden Ring, and Horizon is slowly getting deleted. So like,
I think too, though,
for me, the things that stand out are like these big moments, and like, yeah, Varl dying is surprising because from the beginning they've shown that like, he's someone special to you, and that it's also like a sign that like she's going to work with people more so than she did in the first game. She's like opening up a little bit, which I think was interesting for her.
I think too what helped build that up is, well, there's like 2 things I want to shout out. One quick shout out, just like the first game. I mean, there are more people that are like, oh, like the savior of Meridian. Like, there are some people that like Aloy now because she was the savior, but people are just still complete jerks to you in this game. Like, everybody, like, Hades hates you. Like, I have so many screenshots of people just talking smack to you. Silence is like, oh, come find me if you want to find the thing that you wasted the last like 4 months failing to get. It's just like, they just really pile on the smack talk in this game, which I appreciate as part of the drama. But I think part of what made Varl such a standout character in this game that like then in turn made his death way more weighted is his relationship with Zoe as well, who's this woman from, oh geez, I forget the name of the tribe, but they're like sort of like peaceful, Utaro maybe? Like peaceful,
they're like cultural focus, yeah, right?
They're sort of, they have like the land gods, which are like these machines that help like tend the crops, and everyone's kind of dealing with the oh god, what is it called? It's like is it called the blight?
Yes.
red, like, yes, okay. It like
Blight.
blends together with like other lore phrases, but everyone's dealing with the blight differently, and how the blight is sort of, it's like the red vine, sort of representation of like the earth dying and things decaying and stuff turning, similar like to the corruption, the first game. So like she's dealing with that, and like Aloy helps out, and then Zoe then joins kind of Aloy's army, right, of like people that hang out in the base. The base is a huge thing in this game too, of everyone being there and hanging out, and it's like a place you can like restock on things. But without going too much on this tangent, I think her, like Varl and Zoe getting together and forming a romantic relationship, which actually happens shortly after Aloy's injury in the when she sees like the clone, because like she has to recover, and then you kind of like as Aloy see them like in the shadows, and then they're like, and they kiss, and I'm like, oh my god, like they're like, okay, they're hooking up or whatever, which is like very clear because they have a romantic relationship, and I'm immature, so I'm like, oh snap, I'm like, this is crazy, and I'm like, damn, Aloy, you just alone though, right? Like, oh, it's rough. Like
she had her shot. She chose. She wasn't interested.
Wait, also, everybody, just like the last game, everybody wants Aloy in this game. Like the Sun King's like, I don't like how we left it. Aaron's like, drinking, like he's down bad. Like he's put on Marvin's room, like he's drinking, like his troubles away. Like there's a lot. And then Petra, of course, has always, kind of been flirting with Aloy. Like everyone still wants Aloy, but Aloy's like busy saving the earth. But like there's some lonely nights. Like, I don't know. Like they like lay on that drama in a really amusing way to me, just like they did in the last game.
Yeah, I would say that Aloy's relationships with people are way more complicated in this game. Like, I also like the fact, like you mentioned, Janet, that people like her reputation is kind of out there now. Like people recognize her as like the savior from the Battle of Meridian. She gets called savior by a lot of people. But there's still like, one thing I really liked was the gradual respect she earns from the Tenakth on the way through. Like they kind of staged the Tenakth before you realize who Regala is and what her role is in the story. They kind of staged them as the antagonists. Like, oh, you're going to get jacked up in the Forbidden West because the Tenakth are there and they ain't going to like you. Like, and they make it seem like that's going to be kind of your primary antagonist throughout the game early on. And as you kind of discover their settlements and you do the melee pits and stuff like that, you come to find out that, they've got as much respect for Aloy as most of the rest of the Eastern world does, and it's interesting to hear like, how in the East they call it the Forbidden West, but as you travel through, they start to call it like the Savage East because the Nora are like backwards and don't understand technology. And one of the things that I really liked was every time Aloy encountered, like specifically with like the Utaru tribe in Plainsong, where they're all talking about the they're revering the machines as land gods, and she's like struggling to like, she has seen behind the curtain, so to speak, and she knows that all their beliefs are just nonsense. And she's trying to like speak to them on their own terms, and she's like, oh yeah, there's a spirit in this cave that I can free that will cure your land god. And you could see she's like audibly annoyed trying to talk to these people.
I was annoyed as a player on her behalf too. I was like, let's just get to it, man. Like, yeah. I do like a story where it's like, I mean, essentially there is like this religion that she knows is inaccurate, but she still has respect for what those people believe. And I like stories like that. Like there's a handful of stories about like people like that I enjoy. Like one that comes to mind is this game, Iconoclasts, which is this like indie platformer that I love. And that's kind of what that game is about too, is like there's this really important religion that everyone follows, but you as the player character like have seen behind the curtain like Aloy has, and you're kind of like, oh, I know what this really is about. I'm gonna keep trudging along and go after my goals, and I'll try not to ruffle too many feathers as I'm going along.
Yeah, that is it's interesting to see Aloy's kind of view on the world, where she was at the beginning of Zero Dawn versus Forbidden West, where she has so much more knowledge. But I do have to say the death of Varl was an interesting moment for me for all the reasons that Janet mentioned. Like they spent a lot of time building Varl up as more of a complete fleshed out character, like complete with relationships, and he wanted so desperately to kind of help carry Aloy's burden, to help her out. And, initially she kind of pushes him away in the beginning of the game. She's like, no, I don't need help. I don't need your help. Just go back to, go back to your mom and live your life. And she grudgingly accepts that this mission is way bigger than she is, and that she needs, that she does need a team of people. And like Janet said, the base becomes a huge thing. You deliver the Gaia back up there, and you gradually and I started to feel like I started to grasp that the scope of this was going to be much bigger than I had initially anticipated. When you start having this base just full of people from different walks of life and different tribes throughout the world, all pulling together to kind of save the earth from itself. Like it's actively trying to purge humans, because, the previous AI ran out of control. And, as you peel back the layers of that, the one thing that I think blew my mind was, you spend the early part of the game trying to trace the source of the extinction signal that drove Hades mad and turned him against you. And, you end up discovering that, the Far Zenith are actually behind that signal. And there's a lot that goes on there. I don't know. Do we want to talk about the very back part of the game? Because I feel like there's so much to unpack there in terms of how crazy it gets.
I think we can definitely just jump around. I think before we go too far from Varl's death, though, I will say, I don't know. I'm so conflicted. This is to me, when that happened, I'm like, this is going to be the spoiler cast of spoiler casts forever on any content that I'm in, because I think it was such a powerful and effective moment in terms of, I think, eliciting emotion from the player. I teared up to that. I thought it was so sad. And you saw it happen too, live on cameras, and they cut away. You see it's not a knife, but it's this big blade, cut through his body. It was very much a he's 2000% dead. The way Rost was when he was exploding.
Yeah.
This man is dead, not a little messed up. He's gone. And I think for me, I did struggle with it being, him specifically, Varl, because not only do we have such a big relationship with him in the first game, but they fleshed him out so well. I think just to throw away a character like that was narratively disappointing, but I think also to have this really incredible, well-written black character, to kill them off just felt incredibly cliche to me. I think I'm so mixed on how I feel about it as a narrative choice, because it does feel a little bit akin to, there was a lot of conversation around Last of Us 2 going into that, and are they going to fridge Ellie's girlfriend, the trope of killing off the girlfriend to give the character a thing. And this felt bad in that tropey sense. But that's not to say that I don't think it was maybe a good narrative decision, and the point is that I care about the character. But I'm curious as to if you guys had that thought process at all, or what you think, how that hit for you. Again, I do think it was effective, but it felt at the cost of something bigger than the story itself. So I don't know.
I agree with that. I had seen. Sorry, I had seen Varl's death as I immediately recognized oh man, they killed the one person of color that was really close to Aloy. And immediately my mind went to, well, who else could they have killed, right?
It should have been Erend.
I was going to say the same thing, because Erend is kind of a pseudo love interest to Aloy herself, right? And they could have deepened the bond between Erend and Aloy and given you kind of the same emotional payoff. If Erend had kind of gotten closer to Aloy and she had let him in a little bit more, and he had become more of a proper love interest to her, and then they offed him, and I think that could have, in some ways, been more impactful, than losing kind of a half-hearted apprentice, right? And the other part of it is that I would have loved to have seen Varl continue down the path of learning from Aloy, becoming, and potentially opening up to maybe a multiplayer thing in the next game or something like that, where you could control Varl. I was kind of disappointed that they chose, him instead of any of the other characters that are kind of in Aloy's orbit that could have fulfilled that role, with some clever writing.
Yeah, it made her mission more dangerous, but it didn't make her goals change at all. She wasn't more motivated to complete her mission because Varl died, but the mission is a little more dangerous now, I guess, is what I took away from it.
Yeah. I think too, one thing on that same note of like Varl's death, because like that's, super sad scene, we go and continue, and then you have to like face Zoe, who's like his girlfriend and partner, like who, is another black character, but isn't as prominent in terms of the action. Like she's very much like, oh, I'm doing research on the side. Like she's not in the thick of the combat. But she still, plays a big role in the story, and she like sets up, it's like so sad. Like she sets up like the funeral like area. I mean, again, I think these are like beautifully crafted moments. I just feel like it's on like a tired trope that was kind of like, sat funny with me. But that was like a really beautiful scene as well. And you can like sit there as the player later. But then when she was like, oh, also I'm pregnant, I'm just like, Sony only tells one story, and it's always someone secretly pregnant and somebody died. And I don't know. I just felt like that also was a moment of like, of course she's pregnant. Yeah, it's not enough for him to die. He has to have this kid that doesn't have a dad now. Like, how did y'all take that pregnancy? And then it doesn't get talked about ever again either. It's just like, oh yeah, by the way, maybe in the third game, the kid is born or something.
Like, there's a lot in which we can get to later of like, this game is very much like, don't worry, a third one's coming. Like, and that's one of those like, don't worry, this will come back, but just not in this next couple hours. But it just kind of felt like, I don't know, like a melodramatic twist to me is kind of how I felt about it. I didn't really feel anything. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, I guess, is, I don't know, maybe the jaded way to think about it. Did you feel strongly about it, Steve? I mean, like, was it just kind of like, cool,
I feel like,
let's go save the world?
I'm not sure. Like, there's a lot going on in this game, and I do agree. Like, I don't think I've seen a more obvious setup for a third for a sequel than Horizon Forbidden West. Like, there's no way that it offers. But I think the end of the game is one of the best that I've seen in a while. Like, I really am in love with how this game ends in particular.
Really? Okay.
I like games that give an impending sense of doom at the end, like, because so often like games try to wrap themselves up just in case they don't get funded for a sequel, right? Like they're always like, oh, well, we got to end on a note that makes the player feel good about what happened. And for the same reason that I kind of loved the original Rocky, and I wish that the whole rest of the series never happened. Like I love that Forbidden West ends with, Aloy is comforting her companions, but she's the only one that knows that the Earth is essentially screwed. Like,
before we get too deep into that, I think we learned that Far Zenith is basically humans that left thousands of years ago to try to find another livable planet. Did they find one? I don't remember.
Yes.
They did, and that's where the Far Zenith
ruined that one, and now they're
from.
coming back. No, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. I know why they're leaving. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, I think we can still talk about like what that initial setup is. Like it's not instant in the reveal, but it's kind of like in that era of like we see that like a clone of Aloy exists, that drama goes on. Again, these things might be slightly out of order, but I feel like the important thing is that we recap the big points and like what we thought about them rather than how the order that they were presented in, unless that's relevant. One of the big things that happened too is like Beta joins Team Aloy's army. And around that kind of time is also when we realized who are the Far Zeniths. So they are this gets talked about a little bit in the first game, not by name, but we know that there was a group of like super rich people that were like, yo, the Earth is going down. Let's go off to space. Where have we seen this story before? Right? It's happening now. Anyway, but people go off to space.
Oh, okay.
I mean, what if art had something to say about the human condition? They go off into space, but we know they like blow up. Like they don't make it. That's what we knew before. Turns out they did make it. They just kind of covered and like the idea that the ship blew up is like a lie. They didn't want anyone to know that they made it. They lived. They had like we kind of find out more about why they end up coming back to Earth. That's the initial like big beats of information, and that they cloned Elizabeth because just like why Aloy is like now like the savior and stuff. Like you need to have her DNA to get to certain places.
She's a key. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially. So like it's interesting seeing so Beta ends up like I think how do we end up getting her? Like she kind of
you save her
sacrifices.
she like
herself,
separates
basically.
herself and like hides herself in these cocoons, and there's like a weird puzzle that I actually ended up struggling with for a long time because I was like looking around the environment for like a 3-digit number. I was like, surely it's like painted on a wall in blood or something.
Okay.
Is what I
Also,
thought.
I want to give a quick negative shout out to, this is just a personal, we all have our different preferences in games. I think if I read a piece of information that teaches me a code, when I walk up to a terminal, they should just highlight those numbers. Like, I should not have to then go back into the note and like read the code. Cause that was a recurring beef I had with this game. Like, and I get, it adds a layer, but I'm like, look, like, I feel like the work was finding the thing. Like, anyway, but that's why you had that issue, because it doesn't just ingrain the information in your character's mind.
There's 627 things here, and then the puzzle solution is to enter 628. That's not the actual number, but like basically it's how she hid herself, and then you acquire Beta, and Beta's at your base. And that was some of my favorite conversations were between Aloy and Beta, because they're kind of antagonistic. Like, they don't really get along, and that's interesting, like that she's arguing with herself.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when you first get Beta and you find out that she had like a very advanced version of the focus that was like implanted in her body, and she had to remove it, and she's like going through withdrawals, and you give her one of the many that you have in your bag of focuses, apparently.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, oh, this thing's terrible. Like, it's so primitive, but
it's
I guess
like an
it'll
iPhone
work.
3. It's like, what am I going to do? I guess I can use this. I can still open Twitter, but it's not the same.
It's like handing my child a Switch phone, or like a Switch that you have to flip open.
Flip
phone.
ones,
She would be like, how would I have to press buttons on this thing? How does this work? I don't understand.
It's a whole other world. Also, again, jumping around, we got to talk about Ted Pharaoh's cave.
I don't know what.
Oh my gosh, with the CO.
So there's like, well, actually, Steve, do you want to go ahead and give us that recap? No, you did this. It was part of the main path. Steve, can you set it up for us?
Okay.
Yeah. So you end up meeting this tribe of folks, and I can't remember what their name is, but they are more connected than most tribes that you encounter. Like, they already have access to data, but they believe that Ted Pharaoh is essentially like their savior, their god, and that he was the one who was trying to save humanity, which of course at this point in the story, Aloy knows that Ted Pharaoh was a complete jerk and essentially orchestrated the downfall of humanity. But you end up traveling across the sea to a distant place called San Francisco, where you end up encountering a tribe of folks where their leader is called the CO, spelled CEO, and they've got like one thing that I thought was funny is like their tribal symbol is like a Wi-Fi icon. Like, it's got like the little dot and the two waves, and they're all wearing it. So essentially you come into contact with like what would happen if like a dystopia occurred and like tech bros somehow still existed. But they open up Ted Pharaoh's cave, and
I remember now, because the leader thinks he's a descendant of Ted Pharaoh.
The leader thinks he is Ted Pharaoh. Like, he thinks he's like a clone or whatever. He doesn't really, like, he believes that he is like the reincarnation of Ted Pharaoh, and he makes he makes Aloy wear like office wear, like he makes
garb. Okay, can we also, and it's a different era, I forgot what year, like and obviously this is all loosely based on reality, like I forgot what year the world ends in like the Horizon world, but when she had to wear office clothes, like I was picturing like, regular, it's very much like, I don't know, I'm like, I've never seen anyone pull up to the office in like it's like a loose fitted shirt, it's like flared pants, like, I mean, this is the clothes that Elizabeth wore in the hologram, so I guess that's how they were rolling. But it's like
that they're predicting.
Yeah, it's like the future's past office garb. If they did that now, I guess it'd be us wearing like sweatpants and like t-shirts or something. Like, I don't know, but Aloy really didn't want to wear it. And then she ends. Also, that ends up being that's technically armor, and it has like pretty good stats. But I never wore it because it's super ugly.
Yeah, I wore it for the next few encounters, and I was like, I can't. Like, every time I see her in a cutscene, I'm like, you're so out of place, but the stats are so good.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even make sense. But yeah, it was definitely weird seeing Aloy dressed as Elizabeth, because it kind of highlighted the differences despite being like a perfect physical clone, just culturally, like she wears her hair much differently, and she has a different vibe to her as like, she's a warrior, and Elizabeth was like a brilliant, scientist. So it's just interesting to see like how dissimilar they can be. And the same goes for Aloy and Beta, where it's like they're made from the exact same genetic template, but they were raised so differently.
So like as they get closer to like the tomb or whatever, where I think they're going to find like some big technology or something, and that's why they're pursuing it, something like that. And Aloy goes there like ahead of them. It was like a classic, the doors are broken. So she like reads some notes and some data before and realizes that no, this isn't. They don't want to open this. Not only does it not have what they're looking for, it is Ted Faro. He's still alive, but he's like disgusting, mutilated, like a weird monster creature thing. And so she's like, nah, you don't want to go in there. And he's like, no, this is my like legacy and my right. Like, I'm going to look at it. And you like hear this horrible like scream. It's very, very, like science fiction, and but you don't see it. Were you guys bummed that you didn't see Ted Faro? I feel like we should have.
Yes.
I can see Varl dying graphically right in front of me, but Ted Faro's weird monster. Come on, like I felt like I should have seen.
I wanted to kill Ted Faro's monster. Like I wanted Aloy to be. That would have been.
Oh my god, that would have been so good. Like I felt like it was such a. I was not a fan. I get why they did it, but like I really want to see it.
Yeah, I think it was almost like. I mean, Horizon does not really have a sense of humor. Like there's not really a comedic moment in the game as far as I can remember. But like I guess that's as close as they got to a joke of like, yeah, we're not going to let you see it. And it is funny that the Descendant guy, the CEO, like is instantly like, all right, let's kill that thing. Like like no hesitation, just like we've been searching for this thing forever. He doesn't make any attempt to understand it or try to figure out what it is. He's just like, he takes one look at it and he's like, let's just blow the whole facility up and go home. That seems like a great end to the day. Let's get out of here, guys.
Aloy and the other woman that's there. I forgot the name of that character, but she's like part of, that tribe that Steve mentioned of like, there's like a group of people that like they have focuses and they look for like data and to understand the world more, but they have this very like morphed version of reality, which I guess is kind of, I think that's a really interesting through line in this game where it is, without getting into like, I don't think it's trying to mimic any specific ideologies or belief, but I think a lot of what this game is predicated on is like knowledge and ignorance and belief versus truth, but like versus reality. Like it plays with a lot of those themes because even I think we see Aloy as like the most knowledgeable one. Like she, we are Aloy and like we see her journey and we see her learn these things and we see her know more than all these other people. But at the same time, like I think the more we play this game, the more we realize Aloy doesn't know anything. And even Silence maybe doesn't know everything either. It's like there's a whole nother like this game, I feel like narratively is like I'm trying to think of what metaphor this would be. It'd be like if you turn something and you realize it's a cylinder and not a circle is basically what this game is like.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good metaphor. Yeah. So that's almost like, that almost feels like just like a side tangent, even though it is like mainline quest. I don't even remember what you ultimately take away from that towards your mission. But maybe I'm just misremembering. But
also, though, shout out to that guy dying and getting crushed by the head of the statue of himself. Well, of
another,
which is
another joke, I guess, technically.
Yeah, that was. And then I also think like, when they get out, they're like, "What are we gonna say?" Like Kayla and this woman are like, "What are we gonna say?" Like, let's just be like, "Oh, he gave his life for the pursuit of data." And the guy's like, "Look." This dude was a piece of garbage. We hated him. We hated him. He definitely didn't give his life. So you have 10 seconds to tell me what actually went down, and then maybe I'll let you save the world. Which is also a frustrating, like I think, through line of the game of people being like, I guess I'll let you save the world, but not until you deal with like my petty problems that I have going on, because I don't even know if you're telling the truth anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I did think it was funny that people, if you believed that she was there to save the world at all, why would you hold her up with literally anything? Like, oh, hey, everyone's going to die unless you do this? Well, I need you to help me fix this robot real quick.
Right. That's just her curse through all the games. It's just like, please let me just do this thing I have to do, please. I beg of you. So then now we're getting really towards the end at this point. The other thing I liked about Far Zenith, which I think they revealed earlier on, is like your assumption, at least my assumption, was that they were like descendants, that they had thrived and survived and had children and children. But like, turns out that they're just the original people who have just modified their bodies to live super long time, but essentially immortal. I mean, they don't say it as they don't call them immortal explicitly, but they seem like they could be. Like technology has gotten far enough where they can just sustain forever, which I thought was really cool, actually. I thought that was a cool sci-fi twist. I liked that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. It's also what Ted Farrow was trying to do that turned him into the monster he became. He was trying to become immortal and live forever, and he ended up. I think if you read like some of the data logs that are in his cave, it mentions that that's what his goal was, but his body ended up mutating out of control, and he became this, whatever it is that we don't get to see. But yeah, that was kind of mind-blowing for me to realize that we're not looking at, people who grew up on another planet. These people know the whole history of Earth. Like, they were on the ship that left. This is essentially, Jeff Bezos come back, and we're looking at folks that are thousands of years old.
Guy is bald, isn't he? Is that on purpose?
Yeah, he is.
Something about when you get to that level of success, you shave your head.
Like, no. And then I guess it's somewhere along that journey, Tilda is one of the Far Zenith who you learn is like on your side, like was the one who was nice to Beta, and then she joins you on your mission, at least at first. Turns out, she's maybe not so nice, but
I started to have doubts about Tilda when you wake up and you're in her like underground vault or whatever it is, and you find out that she kind of like, she's like, well, the Earth is going to shit and everyone's going to die. I'm going to hoard a bunch of priceless art and just stockpile it here, so much so that I'll keep it safe from the apocalypse and eventually come back for it. I was like, anybody who does that at the end of days is probably not the best person.
I will say,
I guess that's true.
I don't know, not me defending this rich, shady space woman, but like for additional context, like she was like one of the many ways that she built her like wealth is she developed technology that could detect counterfeit pieces. So I don't know, like she was a big like art person. And I think the vibes were just off in that whole encounter. Like you could tell that like if she was there to help, it was very much in that silence energy of like, I'm kind of a horrible person, but like, what else are you going to do? You don't have anyone else here, and I'm the only one that knows what you need to do. So you're going to listen to me. I mean, she was less aggressive than Silence is, but she had a lot of that same energy of, well, take some time. And like this is right after I think Varl dies too, because she's like, my friend died and you want me to look at these freaking French impressionist paintings and like learn about them. And she's like, well, yeah, I mean, like art can, she's very pretentious. She's like, art can, heal the soul. And that's what, it's so beautiful. These are like our best accomplishments of all of humanity and da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, so you can look through those for a while, and then you like sit out on this. It was so weird, like sitting out in her like decrepit but luxurious balcony, and you're just eating like croissants and talking to like your space person. Like the whole thing was like bizarre in a really fun way.
Yeah, is that so? It's at that. Is it? It might be at that point, or maybe it's later. And you guys, please correct me if I misunderstood this. The reason that they're coming back to Earth after having found some livable place for the past couple thousand years or whatever, is that an AI has basically gotten out of control, and it's just this like monster that cannot be destroyed that's literally chasing them through space to Earth.
Yep, Nemesis.
Right?
Yes.
Nemesis. Yeah.
The names
Nemesis.
are all very like, again, the Kojima energy. Like Nemesis is the thing that's against us. Did they name it Nemesis
energy,
before,
right?
do you think? Or did they call it that after? Like, was it always called Nemesis? I feel like that should have been a red flag.
This is our AI that we've invented that will save humanity. We're calling it Nemesis.
Yeah, like, what is that?
Well, the AI, if I remember, the AI was like folks got tired of being immortal physically and wanted to become data. And they uploaded the consciousness of people who were on Far Zenith into this kind of this AI, and it like started going insane with all of these different personalities existing within it, and then decided
season 2, basically.
Yeah, it wanted to kill all of the remaining, like the people who took what, in my opinion, is the objectively correct path and chose to keep their physical bodies. And it was chasing them, but they had initially lied to Aloy and said, oh, it was a seismic event. Like something happened on the planet and it's no longer habitable. And then, right at the end game, they're like, we were lying. It's actually this giant red cloud of angry people we uploaded to the internet. And now they want to destroy us, and they're going to kill you because we showed up here. So,
yeah, because like they're running from Nemesis. They came to Earth with the intention to sort of wipe the slate clean, right? That's their evil goal, is to
That's what we
wipe
thought
out.
it was. That's
yep.
what we all thought it was. But then at the very end, we realized they never wanted to wipe Earth clean. They wanted to take Gaia away to build a new planet somewhere else. I don't know how they expected to like duck Nemesis though, but you know.
They're just always going to outrun Nemesis is their plan. Like they can't stop it, right? So they're just going to jump.
That's the one thing that's a little confusing in the sense that like I don't know, and Steve or either of you, if you remember, like if they said this, but like how they intended to actually evade Nemesis. Because even if they got Gaia and started a new planet, couldn't Nemesis just find them on that new planet and then destroy it? Like I don't know if they had an idea on how to hide further, but
Tilda was weirdly vague about that. Like she was like, "Oh, Aloy, come with me, and we're gonna go find a planet where Nemesis can't find us." If I remember.
Okay. Also, there's so many things to talk about with Tilda. So like I've been looking at my phone because I texted Blessing a bunch during this game, like from Kind of Funny, because he was reviewing it alongside me, and I was like just. Whenever things were happening, I was writing down. So I'm like, oh, what were my thoughts that I like haven't been able to share because like no one's beaten this game yet. One was back to Tilda being sketchy from the beginning. At one point, Aloy says, "You didn't know the other Zeniths were monsters," and she says, "I knew some of them were, but." Girl, what? Like, she's like, oh well, you know, they definitely were
they're her roommates.
Horrible people, but you know,
I mean, just get a new apartment. You know, you gotta like.
Also,
you gotta sign leases and you gotta go apartment hunting.
I'm really sad that at no point in the game did I get one of those dumb space outfits.
Yeah,
they're so cool. I really wanted one, and I think too, back to the space outfits too. Like one thing I liked about them as like a nod for like the really hardcore Horizon 1 people is the armor, like the protective kind of glow, is very similar to the ancient armor you find if you get all of the power cells in the first game and unlock like the very powerful armor that has like that regenerative shield that makes you like crazy powerful. I'm like, oh, that's probably like an early version of that armor that they're wearing. So I thought cool. Throughout the game they had some really nice. Like kind of I wouldn't call it fan service, but some fun threads to like, if you're heavy into this, you're really going to notice like these little details.
Yeah, it's nice to have that consistency of universe. One before we're at the end game now, but I do want to shout out, to use Janice terminology, unlocking the flying mount. That was like a moment for me that like I'm so grateful like wasn't spoiled for me. Like right when the embargoes dropped, I saw a lot of people sharing screenshots of Aloy on top of the pterodactyl and stuff. I
don't know why people. I thought the same thing. I'm like, why are people sharing this? But like even PlayStation themselves, like they don't consider that a spoiler. Like the people that made the game.
Like, that was like one of my. I mean, there's a lot of cool story moments, but in terms of like gameplay moments, like that was like Janet. We have like those discussions at the end of the year for MinMax that are like moment of the year. That is like the big highlight moment for me, just because I'm like a big gameplay guy. So to have the sort of buildup of like, am I going to get a flying mount? Oh my gosh, I'm flying. Oh, I can call this thing whenever I want. I can fly around on this thing. And then you can use the zip line to like jump on it when it's like flying around. It's really awesome. I love it.
Also, to finally be able to get that tall neck from the beginning of the game, where like when I first approached that, like I was really confused by it because I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be a solution here. And there's like a lock on the icon, like to their credit. Like I didn't spend that much time trying to do it because it seemed very clear that I couldn't do it yet. And there were other things at that point in the game, like the freaking, oh God, I forgot the name of it. It's like the fiery flower. It's like the metal flowers have this, or like there's the thing that you stab and explode. I forgot the name of it, but you know, like
the name,
yeah, like those little. There are some. Yes. Yeah. Fire Gleam. Yeah. Or that's very close. There's definitely Gleam in the word at least. But there's like a lot of early, almost like Metroidvania moments of they're like, you don't have this tool yet, which I don't know. It's fine because you get them pretty quickly. But I was like, okay, well, what's this going to be? Like, or maybe I just can't figure it out yet. Maybe I just haven't discovered it. But to have that all come together, I do kind of wish it came a little bit earlier. I get maybe not wanting to give it to you too early because then it kind of just really can change how you traverse and explore the area. But I did feel like even when you got it, they were like, by the way, go do stuff that you haven't done yet if you want to. And I'm like, well, I'm like, the ending's literally like, I can see the ending. Like I'm like a few hours away. And, you know, obviously part of the speed I played this was definitely because of the review. But honestly, for spoilers, I probably would just play it pretty similarly for fun if I was playing it immediately, because I think the story is so engrossing that I'm like, look, there's a lot of fun stuff on the sides, but I'll I'll really dig in when I want to know what's going on in this main plot. So yeah, but the Sunwing was like super cool. I streamed the game shortly after like the embargo lifted, and I purposefully like never like did like even showed the mount icon because I don't want to ruin it for people. I thought it was so fun.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Sony spoiled that, because I agree that it was a huge moment in the game. And I remember when I was sending my footage to my editor for it, I had unintentionally included a clip of the Sunwing, like of Aloy riding it. And I was like, oh, don't use that. They said no spoilers. And he came back to me and he's like, we've already seen that in trailers. I was like, what? Really? Like, that is such a thing to spoil for someone.
Don't put that in the trailer, man. Come on.
Also, you can do a barrel roll on the Sunwing.
Yes.
So I want to
very important strategy.
I will say that playing through the game and kind of forcing your way through the story and then having the Sunwing later on to be able to travel, because a lot of times there's great distances to traverse between quests, and it is really nice after having beaten the game to just have the Sunwing to like fly across the map. One thing that I do want to, we talked about platinuming the game earlier. I am not a fan of the fact that I believe you have to scan the last boss to get the platinum. Like, I believe that there's a trophy for scanning every machine.
Yeah.
And one of them is the last boss.
Yeah.
Which you can miss, I guess, right?
You can miss it. Yeah. If you beat the boss and you never scanned it, then you have to go back to a save. Hopefully you have a save prior to the last boss and then go scan it.
I don't know if I have a save for that. I'm still going to work on it. We'll see. I think I scanned it, and it's funny because like I was playing again like after like the game came out. I think even like I don't even think I just did the embargo stream if there was one, but like I scanned like maybe it wasn't a Thunderjaw, but it was like some like very common like creature, and it was my first time scanning it apparently because I got like a trophy for it, and people were like, "This you've never scanned this?" I'm like, I guess I didn't. Like sometimes you just kind of either they don't. There's a couple interesting things with this game in terms of the machines. Like, I think there's so many that if you only do the main quest, it actually is very possible not to scan like a lot of them. Like, I didn't see, there's like a gorilla styled machine in one of the side quests that like I had never seen because it never came up until like that one. So yeah, I don't know. That is unfortunate, but I get, and they really did change up a lot of things too with like the override system is a little different too. In that like, at least for the first one, I'm not sure if they carry it through with all the others, but you had to craft the override as well. Like you couldn't just learn it. Yep. You had to like go get some pieces and do that. So I think they do have some fun like switch ups in that regard. But yeah, the scanning thing, because then if you die, like you might remember, I don't know, like it's a little bit rough. I scanned it at one point. I don't know if I did in the version that I beat it in. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we should mention the final boss is Tilda. Like she kind of, right? You're like,
she's insanely fast. She's too fast. Yes. I'm not going to lie. That's the only part of the game that I put that thing down to story. Because I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, it moves really quick. And that enemy is like, maybe
what do you mean, Janet? It's too fast? Like you beat her too fast? Is that what you were saying?
She moves too fast. Like I could barely do any damage. Like I did really well on everything else. Like frankly, I think I'm pretty good at like Horizon. Like I like the gameplay. It has a good slowdown. I like, aiming at the machine parts. Like I'm pretty skilled. Like if there's a multiplayer thing, I'll hold my own okay, like in a party. But she was like way higher than the quest level recommendation. And admittedly, I was like 1 or 2 under the quest recommendation anyway. And she's in kind of this giant, what's the name of the...
Spectre.
Yeah, she's like in a giant specter. Like she's very cool in design, but the specters move really quickly. And like, I really heavily rely on like the slow downness of the game. And then specters are also really hard to hit because there's not a lot of their body, for lack of a better term, of the machine that is not armor plated. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna beam through this. Like, this is fine. And there's like 2 hard fights before that too. There's the Regala battle, and there's the battle against one of the other Zeniths. And I did both of those on my own. They're both also melee battles, which I was like, oh, whoa. I never really learned how to do melee well in this game. I've been shooting my arrows. So I did struggle a bit with with those fights. And I kind of felt, frankly, a little bit sidelined from them just because the main quest never had anything that indicated that I'd have to square up and you have arrows for that, but like to square up in a more melee style thing, like I felt a little bit unprepared. I'm curious as to what y'all thought of those. Like, I kind of think of them as a trio of those final enemies that you encounter.
Yeah, Regala was definitely difficult for me, just because like I kind of got used to taking my space and firing arrows at enemies. Also, please, Gorilla Horizon 3, just let us use different ammo types. Like I don't need a freeze bow and arrow and a fire one. Like I could just use one with different arrows. But I found that one thing that I did like was the I think it's called the disruptor, like where Aloy charges some energy on the back end of her spear and then like deposits it on the body of her enemy. Like she charges a part of their body and then you can shoot them with an arrow and it creates like an explosion. That move I really enjoyed using in this game, especially in combination, like because you have to do a heavy attack to charge an enemy's body, and if you do like, I think it's a light attack and then you hold the heavy attack, she'll jump off of the enemy backwards and then you can like kind of bullet time shoot an arrow into the enemy's body. And I never got tired of using that. But I think that those towards the end of the game, I think the boss battles kind of increase in difficulty with a pretty sharp increase at the Tilda fight. Like I feel like the Tilda fight was the only one that I would classify as being kind of unfair based on the way the experience goes up to that point. Like suddenly it's just way more difficult. And I also struggled with that fight. I think it took me like 3 or 4 tries to get her down. And eventually I got so frustrated I stopped scanning the machine because I was like, oh, I should scan it. And then I think by the time I killed her, I was just like, please die. Please die.
So that's in particular why it's frustrating, because you have to scan her every time if you're doing multiple.
Yeah, if you scan her and then you die and you reload, you lose that. That gets dropped out of your database, which was unfortunate.
You talked a little bit about it, Steve. I would love to hear us all like our specific thoughts about the ending. Like overall, I did like it. I really like Far Zenith. I like Beta. I like her teaming up with everybody. I like Silence's decision to stick around. He kind of is like, I'm going off doing my own thing, then kind of changes his mind, to come back. But like, it did feel to me like a little bit of like don't worry, Horizon 3 is coming. Like they used some of the sort of the end to like set up Nemesis, which was like leaves it a little dangling for me. Like but I also like, I'm a little torn about it. Like I understand it'll make the sort of the full potential trilogy better to have that moment. And it does, it certainly concludes better than other, cliffhangers that have existed in other entertainment media and stuff like that. But I was left a little bit like, oh, like job's never done, but like not in a really like exciting or compelling way. It's like, well, all right, she's got another couple of years of just being anxious all the time because if she doesn't do something, the Earth's gonna die. At least I would have liked to have her get a little bit of rest here. But Steve, how did you feel about it? How would you think of the ending overall? Yeah,
so I alluded to this earlier, but I absolutely love the way this game ends. I like the idea that there's a looming threat, for lack of a better term, on the horizon. Right. She, that Aloy is burdened with the knowledge that despite everything she's done, that it wasn't enough. She has a few months at most, because the other key component of the ending that we haven't talked about yet is that Aloy doesn't get all the what are they called, like sub functions of Gaia that she needed. Right. She desperately needed Hephaestus, which is the one that makes the machines, and they had
there were like 6, and she only got 3 or something.
Yeah, she desperately needed Gaia tells Aloy at the beginning of the game, okay, I need Demeter and a couple others. They're all named after like Greek gods. And then she goes, and I need Hephaestus. With the others, I can save the Earth for a few more months. If I get Hephaestus, I can start making machines to help, and I'll be able to stave off the destruction of the Earth indefinitely. And you do go through a long quest line to capture Hephaestus, but then you have to use it to fight the Far Zenith, and it escapes again into the Cauldron network. So at the end of the game, you're still stuck in the position of you have a couple months on the timer before the Earth kills itself, and now you have Nemesis coming from outer space to finish the job. So, you're kind of set up with this, Aloy knows that while her friends are happy and everyone's like, taking in this huge victory over this seemingly unbeatable foe, that nothing's better. Everything is still, it's only mildly improved over where you started. And I love that fact that you can kind of see it in Aloy's face. She's like, yeah, this is great, but holy hell, we're still screwed. Like the Earth still needs to be saved. And you're kind of left with this two-pronged thing where you're going, at the beginning of whatever they call the next horizon, you're going to need to find Hephaestus. And then you're going to need to figure out this threat, of Nemesis, which is now coming for the Earth. And the fact that it wiped out the Far Zenith folks in a matter of days. I think they said it took like days for this AI to just destroy their whole civilization they had created. I mean, and what is a comparatively super primitive people going to do faced with that threat? I'm really just like, I like games that, impart like a sense of dread. Like nothing's okay. You did this big thing, but you still have so much more work to do. And the only kind of downer on it for me is that, well, now we got like probably 5 more years to wait to find out what happens to Aloy, and what happens to the Earth. Like we'll be talking about the PlayStation 6 probably by the time this comes out.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I guess I'm not a big fan of the ending, but I don't hate it. I feel like in some ways it's a less satisfying in terms of having like closure ending than the first one was. Because I think the first one kind of did the same thing too, where it was like it ended, but there might be more. Like, they had that post-credit, like kind of, or maybe it wasn't even post-credit, but a little cutscene with Silence and Hades and the little like lantern that he trapped Hades in, walking away. So it's like, that seems like maybe that could be bad. But one thing that I'm a little bit maybe concerned about, even just hearing, like Steve, you talk about what Horizon 3 looks like. I liked going into, even though Horizon 2 has so much that Horizon 1 has in terms of like the cauldrons and like the tonics. Right. I do think they're shooken up enough where they do feel fresh, but I'm a little worried that I'll go into Horizon 3 and like what you said will be like exactly it. Not that I haven't been able to predict some things on Horizon, but they were jokes when I predicted them. Like when I once joked when we were talking about Horizon 1 that I'm like, in Horizon 2, they go to space. And like that wasn't totally all the way off. Like,
well, they come from space is what it was. That's
exactly. It's totally different. But yeah, like I think that stuff I don't mind as much, but I worry that I'll be able to see too much of what I don't like the idea of knowing what the next game is going to have. Like I went into this game kind of expecting some mechanics to return or most mechanics to return, but I wasn't sure what the setup or what the goal would be or what the problem was exactly, even though there were some seeds of that planted in 1. Here I feel like instead of planting seeds, they have like already grown plants and you just have to keep them alive. And I feel like that's a little bit less interesting. Also, though, I really want to bring up what I'm going to ask y'all this without leading you to what I think it is. What do you think the relationship between Tilda and Elizabeth was?
Oh, I absolutely think that they were like a couple, like lovers.
Right. Okay. Yes.
She Tilda talks about Elizabeth with great affection, like not what you would expect from someone who admired her work or revered her as a professional or a revolutionary. Like she talks about Elizabeth as though they had an intimate relationship with one another.
Before they fight, she says, "I loved Elizabeth more than you can ever know," which I think added an intriguingly kind of gross layer, like, or disturbing layer romantically to the whole game, where really I think that really colors why Tilda was so nice to Beta. And then the idea of Tilda basically being like I guess it gets really dark when you think about it, being like, Aloy, you're coming with me and you're going to like love me. You have a whole lifetime to grow to love me because I'm going to make you immortal. Like that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
But I was like, okay, she definitely banged my clone mom. Like, this is and it was like a weird thing to throw at the end too. I was like I was, we're at that final battle, and like I texted Blessing, I'm like, she like 1000% like banged my clone mom, right? He's like, oh yeah, completely. Like that's not a question.
She also at one point, this is just me thinking about it logistically. She had claimed that she had watched Aloy's entire life.
Yeah, she did. Yes, through the focus.
Yeah, I was like, how does that work? Can someone make a supercut for you? Like that seems.
Yeah,
that's
like
years worth of footage.
The YouTube like look up. I kind of feel bad for Aloy in that sense because I'm like, this is a woman that had never had privacy. Like Silence also watched most of her life through her focus. I'm like, y'all are really watching every second of every day.
That's why she's so anxious to do the right thing. Like she cannot rest ever for anything or pause, like because she just knows some secret creeper is like watching her every move and judging her all the time. She hasn't found everybody. She knows at least 2 people have spied on her whole life. There's probably more.
Oh God.
And then for me, I don't know about you guys, but then when the credits rolled, it was the ultimate reveal for me is that Tilda was played by Carrie-Anne Moss. I was like, oh, no wonder she looks so familiar. That's Carrie-Anne Moss. I don't know. For some reason, that was like that really stuck out to me. I was like, oh, that seems like that would have been in the marketing. Though, the woman who is Trinity in The Matrix is like a main character, but it's like they never leaned on that in any of the marketing.
I kind of like that they didn't lean on that.
I love it, to be clear. It was just a funny moment.
Because then they'd have to and that's what made talking about this game for review or for embargoed podcasts so hard, because like so much of what's interesting about it is like those big twists in the story, which even without the embargo details, I wouldn't say anyway, because it is spoiling the game. But I'm like, and then, things get crazy. Just trust me. Like it was kind of a hard sell in some ways, but
right.
I really liked it. It was really weird. And I'm like excited to see more and more people experience the story, because I just think it had so much more fun to it in the sense that we had a lot of questions answered, but then like things that we thought we knew, we learned in like a new context. And it kind of really, I think, evolved nicely over what the base game is. One question I do have for y'all, because it's one of the few decisions, you make choices all the time in dialogue, but they're not like, of much consequence. It's just like, how do you want to talk? But for Regala, did you let her live after you beat her, or did you kill her?
I let her live.
I let her live.
Me too.
That's one of those stats. I can't imagine there's many people, who are killing her.
I'm like, we need her help. Like, she's like the baddest person here.
Yeah.
But usually when it comes to those kind of stats, when people, they look at trophies or reveal that kind of data, it's always like 90-10 split in terms of like, will you kill the person or let them live,
Yeah, one thing I will say that my proverbial hat is off to Gorilla for, I love the way that when you talk to people, no matter where you're at in the game, they kind of weave in some dialogue about what's happened recently. And lots of games do that, but I don't think very many pull it off as seamlessly as Forbidden West does. Like it feels like a very natural flowing conversation. It's not like, oh, hey, do you want to challenge the melee pit? And then hard cut. And by the way, I heard what happened with Regala. Like they actually kind of recorded enough lines to make it sound natural. And I really appreciate that, because I ended up specifically somehow doing the first melee pit last, like after I had beat the game. And the person at that pit was like, oh, hey, you're ready to take on the Enduring, if you just head north of here, you can go up and meet them, which I just want to say, if you haven't done that quest line, it's kind of cool that like all these badass, like huge buff jacked melee pit trainers are talking about this little old lady who could totally beat their asses. Like she's just lives in the woods and doesn't bother anyone. And she's like, oh, you want to fight? She's like, you're going to have a hard time. And I really like that. Like, unlike the others, she's not just standing guard in some place full of people fighting. She just chills in her hut and she's like, yeah, it's a bit of a walk to where we're going to fight. Why don't we talk? Do you want a snack? Like, I thought she's one of my favorite characters in the game just because she's so chill, but she's one of the strongest Tanakh out there.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I didn't do that quest line, so that's interesting. Did you, any final thoughts? Anything we didn't touch on? Any other moments you guys want to highlight? I certainly have hit all my moments for sure. I mean, the big sci-fi moments are the ones that really stand out for me in our regular podcast discussion about it. Like the tribal stuff, I find just kind of just hurdles I need to jump over to get to the cool sci-fi stuff. And even going into this game, I was worried that the cool sci-fi stuff would either be nearly non-existent or would not be as interesting as the first game. And right. I feel like it was as interesting, which is like like kudos to them for pulling that off. Like the sort of bringing in the people, and it didn't feel like forced, bringing in I didn't even remember the detail about the ship in the first game, but just having that little plant, like, just knowing that it was present, because I think Aloy even says like, oh, I heard about that, made it feel like it wasn't just like some 11th hour twist that they needed to figure out of like, and there were people then on another planet that showed up. Like it felt natural, and having Beta there, I thought was really cool. I liked all that. So cool.
Yeah, I don't think I have any. I'm trying to think. Do I have any last second things? I mean, I love the game. It's awesome. I want to shout out like just the. I don't know. I liked a lot of the like little details that went into it. I really enjoyed the exploration. I think just opening it up a little bit more in terms of being able to climb the mountains just made it a little bit more fun to explore things, because you didn't have to worry about, okay, let me find my exact entry point, because there were usually like a couple different ones, which I thought was super fun. And I like how there are like a lot of puzzles in this game, a lot of moving crates, a lot of finding codes, and almost none of it is like mandatory main quest stuff, but it's all like really interesting, and I have a really fun time doing it. And I haven't completed the game in terms of doing all the quests. I do plan on playing it for quite some time, hopefully getting the platinum, though I don't think I scanned the final boss, and I don't know if I want to replay the whole game just for that, but we'll figure something out. Maybe they'll patch that out. I don't know. It's a good decision, but I really liked how Vegas looked. I know there's not a lot more to say other than it looked really cool and neon-y when you like drain everything, but I thought stuff like that was really fun. I liked how they played with place in this. And I like how, again, I mentioned this on the main podcast, but it's the Forbidden West. It's different than what we know, but it's not like entirely, completely novel. Also, there's racing in this game, so which isn't good, I don't think, but it was weird to see it there. I did one of them. It was like the weirdest. Like it was so. I mean, Steve, did you do any of the races in this game on the?
I got to some of them, but I was at that point where I was just trying to rush through to like beat the game. But so I didn't participate in any, but I found a few around the map.
Please go try at least one of them. They're bizarre. Like they feel of like a different era. Like, I mean, just. Like, I don't know. It's like the weirdest, like, Jack X combat racing, but what if the cars were horse machines and you can, like, instead of throw in an item back, you, like, turn the whole camera around? It is an experience. And I think, even the stuff that didn't maybe, like, knock it out of the park, like the racing thing, I like that they, played with stuff here and it felt different. It felt fresh. And yeah, I'm excited for more people to finish it and share their thoughts, because I think it's gonna be a fun one to talk about for years to come until hopefully the inevitable third one comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feels like 3 is pretty locked in after that ending. I would be surprised if we didn't get a part 3. Cool. Well, that wraps it up for Horizon Forbidden West. It's a good game, turns out, with a cool story. Steve, thanks so much for coming by. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on.
This is your time to do your plugs. Please plug where you're at, what you're working on. Tell us all that fun stuff.
So I'm from Good Vibes Gaming. You can find us over at youtube.com/GVGofficial, over on Patreon at patreon.com/GVGofficial. We just recently brought on John Cartwright, formerly of Game Explained and Nintendo Life, one of our old buddies who we worked with. The channel is experiencing unprecedented growth. We're super grateful. We're giving away a free Nintendo Switch OLED. All you got to do is be subscribed. So now's a great time to try to win something for free from us. But if you want to come and check out what we've got, we would appreciate it all the same if you just come in and see what we're doing over there. I think it's we're doing a lot of new stuff. We had a great video that went big recently about how easy it is to fake being an insider on Twitter. So feel free to check that one out. But yeah, whether you sub to us on YouTube or check out our Patreon, we'd be eternally grateful. But that's all we're doing. Just those 2 places right now.
Awesome. Janie, got anything going on?
Oh God, I think
other than everything all the time that you're always doing.
I think I exhausted all of my. The gaming is over now that all these things are out, but I'm still doing stuff on Twitch, twitch.tv/GameOnyssist. I'll be playing Elden Ring tomorrow for Best of 2022 watch. So still doing stuff there. Follow me on Twitter, also at GameOnyssist. Just see any other work, videos, or articles that I do, in addition to all the stuff I do here at MinMax.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Let's What's our sign off? I always stumble on it right at the end.
Be good, have fun, let's go.
Be good, have fun, let's go. Thank you.
If you are sick of snark, clickbait, and an avalanche of movie news, you can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinMax's YouTube channel here or checking out the benefits over on Patreon. It's a nice clean handshake. You support us, and we won't make dumb, condescending stuff for you. Your support helps us continue our mission of focusing on games, friends, and getting better. Patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it.